Good evening, everybody. Glad to see you're all here today. Welcome back to another episode of Honest Concepts Podcast. My name is Sensei Bronson Long. I'm accompanied, as always, with my instructor, Master Rich Autry. How are you today, sir?
Doing good. Hope you are, sir.
I'm doing just fine. It has been a scorcher this week.
I've been here all day.
Ooh, goodness gracious. It has been hot. We actually are getting started late today because of the heat. It's the work that I do is just, it's hard to do in the heat, and everything just gets really backed up because of it. But we're here nonetheless, and I'm excited to do this with you.
Couple minutes late, but we got it.
Yes, sir, absolutely. We can hang out for a little while. It's not too big of a deal. What we do here every week is we really go back and forth with different topics. Every week you bring in a topic, the next week I'll bring in a topic, and we get to talk about them together on here. And so with you being my martial arts instructor, maybe being your student, I've really grown to appreciate your opinions and your takes on certain things through over the years, you know. And it's become very, very fun to do this every single Tuesday. And this is so much more than just our thoughts and experiences within the realm of martial arts, our walk in martial arts, but more importantly, our walk through life.
Yes, sir.
Really.
Absolutely.
Yes, sir. And so with this week's topic, it really came from a principle that you teach in martial arts. Excuse me. The principle is something I've heard you say, I don't know, hundreds of times over the years, that the pause fills the movement and the movement fills the pause. And I really thought about this because currently in my life, I'm so busy. You know, I've got so many different jobs and part-time jobs and gigs that I'm doing that more often than not, it feels like what I'm doing is just what's in front of me at all times. I kind of feel like, you ever seen the little cartoons of somebody sitting at a desk, they stamp a paper, move it, stamp the next paper, move it. I feel like that sometimes, you know. I'd go from my day job to teaching martial arts, I edit videos, and I'm doing all this other stuff. And I realized the other day that sometimes I need to pause, really take a minute. The movements in my life are important right now. They really are. I'm moving into being a good father. I'm moving into hopefully soon enough becoming a full-time martial arts instructor, and that's really progressing. Right. Every single week it's progressing. And so the movements are important. But I try right now to remember that what you teach in martial arts is so much more than just martial arts. It's philosophy and principle for the way that I live my life. It's helped me in so many places. And right now, even though the movements in my life are very important, I feel like the pauses are just as important, to take a step back and make sure everything that I'm doing is being done correctly and intently.
Sure. You know, excuse me. I always go back to my dad a lot of times, but sorry guys, these allergies are crazy. But when I was a young man, I was probably 14, 15 years old. I'd say, Dad, I'm going to go with some friends. Mm-hmm. And if you didn't know them, if they didn't go to church with us, he didn't know who they were. He said, well, let me think about it for a day.
Okay.
And I'll let you know. But Dad, I need to know right now. He said, well, if I got to give you an answer now, it's going to be no. Mm. He paused, he thought about it, and that's how he raised me. So many times when you're young, you don't do that. Mm. Fast-paced world, like everything's going on, you just do everything, snap at a finger, and everything's quick. But when you become a parent, that's when I really think, or get older anyway, I think that's when you really start realizing about slowing down. You know, it's like your little girl. Let's say she starts walking, she's running at 3 years old, 4 years old, she's running down the hill. So she's starting to take a couple steps, she's starting to get a little faster and faster. You go out there and say, whoa, stop, slow down, right?
Right.
The reason being is there's no pause in there. She's going to lose her balance.
Right.
And that's what's going to happen. You know she's going to fall.
Right.
Because her little feet can't catch up. Well, we do the same thing as humans. Sure. Our little feet can't catch up, you know. So pause do feel the movement, and the movement does feel the pause, especially in martial arts. And we talk about it all the time. We even do demonstrations on it.
Yes, sir.
You're right, yeah.
Yes, sir. No, you're exactly right. It's so funny you bring up your dad. Because actually he was somebody I was thinking of when I was really coming up with how I wanted to talk about this and coming up with the name of it. A few weeks ago on the podcast, you had said that your dad would say something along the lines of, I may be wording it wrong, but along the lines of, son, stop and think about it. Stop and think. And, you know, it's so important to do that, to stop and to think.
Right.
And it really brings you back in. And I've experienced this greatly in the martial arts. you also had a great term that says, when you're doing it fast, guys, you're just doing it wrong quicker.
That's all it is.
You've said that a million times.
1,000
You're just
times.
doing
I
it
have.
wrong quicker. And it's so true. And life is just the same way. And I feel that sometimes when I'm going through all these motions. And it's important. It's not like I'm doing the wrong thing.
Right.
But I think it's important for me right now to look at it and say, don't do it wrong quicker.
Right.
Take your time and make sure you're doing these things correctly.
Right.
Don't rush through these things because it is important to me.
Even in that, less is more. It really is. Less is more. Let's say we got 3 part-time jobs. We're doing this, and that. Sometimes if you just get rid of something, one thing,
Right.
it's one thing less you have to think about,
Right.
and gives you more opportunity to pause.
Right.
I know I used to see a student. I probably did it with you. I'd see a student on the floor. I'd walk over to him and get ready for maybe a choke or a judo throw or something. I'm thinking, maybe they're not quite ready, so I stopped myself. I was, I'm not going to do that. I've actually told some assistant instructors, hey, tonight I want you to work on this, this, and this with some of the students. And then I sit in the office and think about it for a minute. As I walk out on the floor, they're out there warming up, getting ready to do the martial arts. I'd walk over to them and say, look, I'm going to change that. Don't show this technique or this technique, because I thought about it. And they're not quite ready for it. That's the same thing.
Wow. Yeah, you're exactly right. It's in that very similar line of thought. I've only read maybe 10 books my whole life. I've never been much of a reader. If you want to count the 66 books of the Bible, I've got way more. But
That's not more than I've read. I don't like reading books.
I've just never been a reader.
I don't like doing homework. I shouldn't say that.
Me neither.
Do your homework, guys.
Definitely do your homework.
If you know, you'll be a martial arts instructor.
Be careful.
do that.
In this book, it used a phrase. It was talking about being leadership. It was talking about working with people, and it's one of those type of books. And one of the phrases that they said in there was talking about responding instead of reacting.
Right.
And I really think that pausing is what changes a reaction from a response. You had in your system that you teach has taught me so much more than just punching and kicking, locking throws and chokes. That I'm just quoting you all day today, but one of your other phrases that I've heard you say a million times is, I don't care how big or bad or tough you are, even if I threw a tissue at you, you'd probably flinch at first.
Right.
It's just a tissue, but it's a sudden reaction that
Right.
we all have. And as humans, we tend to have those reactions, and it's hard to break those habits.
Sure
In
it
some
is.
ways, it's impossible to break
Absolutely.
some habits.
Absolutely.
But to train ourselves to respond to certain things rather than to react. And in my life so far, I have found it impossible to respond without pausing.
I first started my school. I tried to show so much stuff to so many people so quick
Yes, sir.
because I wanted to show them the kind of knowledge I had.
Sure.
And I didn't have any. I was 22 years old. I
Yes,
thought
sir.
I had knowledge, but I didn't. And then as I got older and I practiced and I grew into the martial arts like we talked about, the pause came every single time, just a little bit more, slow everything down, Even me and Ms. Archer right now, we'll go to do something or buy something for the house or whatever. Instead of just running out and buying it, well, let's think about it.
Sure.
Do we really need it? Do we want it? Or whatever. And most of the time we do get it. But sometimes we're like, man, I'm glad we didn't do that.
Right.
That's the second part of it. When you do pause and you make the right decision, you always come back and say, whew, I'm glad. How many times have you done that?
A lot. I did it this
I'm
week.
so glad I didn't do that.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's so funny actually. There was I was working at a grocery store for my first job. I worked at that store for 7 years.
Right.
And I was actually during that time period is when I first started to teach martial arts. And so that grocery store was it was my first job, then it was my full-time job,
Right.
and then it was just something for backup when I'd be teaching. I was at a daycare after-school center, and I was up in Stanley all the time.
Right.
And then
I miss that place.
Oh, I miss that too.
I
Good
love
people over
good
there.
people in
I think
Stanley.
about the students and the families there every day. Actually, they were great people.
We still go up there once a week. And do
Yeah.
those seminars.
Yes,
We
yeah,
did for what, 2 years?
All the time.
2.5 years or something.
Right. And it got to a point where we were going up there twice a week because I started a tournament team
Right.
up there. Oh, that was so much fun. I just love that school.
Sorry, we got off subject.
Yes, sir.
We get excited talking
Yes,
about
sir.
martial arts.
But having that there in the background and being able to teach on the side, is one of those things where when I was working at the grocery store, I wasn't really making a ton of money at the time.
Right.
And this was before I started actually teaching professionally. This happened. This story occurred. And you were there for me in this time. There was a job opportunity that popped up. It was some type of utility work, working on electrical lines or something. And the year is probably 2016, maybe.
Okay.
Maybe. They would offer me $12 an hour. And I was like, man, that's more than what I'm making right now. You know, that's pretty sweet. Maybe this can help me propel my life into the future, because where I'm at right now, I just don't think I'm going to...
That $2 extra can carry me over the
Oh,
hump.
exactly. That's mortgage right there. You know, I really thought
Oh,
that.
this is a tank of gas.
So I came to you and I talked to you about it. And the advice that you gave me, you may not remember this, the advice you gave me was just think about it. Just stop and think about it. And you didn't really try to sway me in any which direction. More or less what you did was just lay out the pros and the cons of each
Right.
side. And I really appreciated that, because some of the things that you mentioned I hadn't quite thought about.
Right.
The obvious one was that I'd be on the road, which meant I wouldn't be able to do martial arts. And that was a big takeaway more
Yeah.
than anything.
Exactly.
And ultimately, like you said before, I'm so glad I didn't do that. You know,
Right.
my life probably would have gone in a way different direction if I
And
had.
it would have. I guarantee it would have.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Excuse me. I'm going to tell you a story about my dad again.
Yes, sir.
I was about, I don't know, 20 years old, 19, 20. There was this car I wanted to buy. I said, Dad, it was kind of like a year-old car. It was a nice car. I said, Dad, I'm going to go buy this car. He said, okay. I said, I think I can do it. I think I can afford it. He said, well, that's dangerous right there, when you think you can do something. Now, if you know you can, that's different. So, I mean, I was grown. I could do what I wanted to. So guess what I did? I bought that car. 2 months later, I was like, I got to sell this thing. That's a true story. But, you know, that's it. Even though we get older, we still make mistakes. We still rush into things. But it just give you something to think about. That's
Yes,
all it
sir.
is. That's all he was doing to me.
Yes,
And
sir.
I don't remember the situation you're talking about.
Yes,
but
sir.
yeah, I give you something just to think about.
Right.
You know.
Gave me something to think
Absolutely.
about. And I'm glad that you made the right decisions on that. The last thing I wanted to talk about before we go into looking at some of the things that are going on in the chat here. What really drew on this topic today is we've talked about life, and we've talked a little bit about work and experience, patience, things of that nature. You do this, I'm sure. You have to, because I do it. I compare things that I do in the martial arts to life all the time.
It does. It all
It's
relates.
impossible.
It's full circle. And life is full circle.
Yes, sir.
It really is.
Yes, sir.
I mean, for the most part, it is. But everything you do, if you have a passion for it, your wife dances, right?
Yeah.
It's full circle. You know, your martial arts is full circle.
Yes, sir.
People that are engineers, I got some guys watching that are engineers, it's full circle.
Yes, sir.
I got a guy that's probably a nurse, he might be watching tonight. It's full circle.
Right.
It is. Go
It
ahead, I'm
sure
sorry.
is. No,
It just-
you're right,
yeah.
spot on. It's so funny because I would just do a technique one day. I don't care. It can be just a simple wrist grab and do a technique.
Yeah.
And it'd be the same technique I've done for 12 years, and all of a sudden it's like I just see something that just clicked in my mind about something. And what really actually kind of spawned on tonight's topic was I was doing some teaching last Thursday, and I noticed in some of the techniques I was doing when I was pausing. And you think about this sometimes, and I think one of the great things about your system, again, is you have put pauses in places within the techniques that allows for a sense of realism, where the opponent in real life is more than likely going to respond. They're going to move, they're going to push or pull. And in some of the scenarios I was looking at the other night, the places where I paused was a perfect place to pause, because the person on the other side is probably going to do something. I thought about it and I said, you know, for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. And it seems like in life, what do I know, 28 short years here, but it seems to me in life that every time I make a movement in my life, some type of decision, you know, something happens in life that is some type of reaction to that. And before I can move on to my next move, I need to wait for that reaction to happen. Very similar to the martial art techniques. Instead of just rushing through the steps, you know, actually, last phrase I'll quote from you tonight, I promise, was I was doing Japanese sword with you. I was getting ready to test for my first degree black belt, and you had told me treat every technique like it's the last one. And really, I'm glad I just thought of that, because that might be what I need to start doing in my life, is sitting and thinking every movement needs to have the intention, the purpose, as if it's the last one.
Right.
Make it count.
Right.
And then wait for life to respond. And then it's time to go to your next move. Don't rush through these things.
Right. Buy these microphones.
Yes, sir.
We went out and bought microphones and stands, Ms. Ultra and I made like, okay, I didn't know anything about microphones. This guy gave me all the information. Which one would you buy? He said this one. I said, okay. You know, it's the same thing.
Yes, sir.
Something so small or something big.
Yes, sir.
It all comes back.
Yes, sir. You're exactly right. That was fun to do. Let's go ahead and hop into the chat and to see what's going on here. Pool Mike, Miss Easter, so good to see you. Ben Hunter, so good to see you guys.
Hey guys, how you doing?
The Miss Jenny says the gotta have it now of today's society will be the downfall of so many things. It's true. Yeah, I don't know what else to add to that.
I was looking the other day, some guy was up there, some car guy. He said that 48% of Americans right now can't afford their car payment.
That's scary.
48%. That's almost half.
Mm-hmm.
They jump in that big $100, whatever it is, I don't know, $1,000 car payment. And they get it. It's like I did when I was 20.
Right.
But I learned my lesson. But that's what happens. I was watching it. He's like 48% of the people cannot afford their cars.
It's scary.
They jump into it, you know.
Right.
I mean, if they can afford it, fine, but a lot of them can't.
Right. Yeah, it's nerve-wracking to think about. Is that type of stuff? And if you've ever struggled before, even some of the small things, power bill or a car, you know, and there's tons of cars out there, and there's all sorts of bills you can get kind of back on and you can recover from. But that stuff weighs on you.
Yeah.
It weighs on you everywhere you go, and it's easy. When you think of 48%, you're like, oh, that's why that guy gave me the bird in traffic today. He's upset about life. He's going through it.
He's taking his car back to the program right now.
He's going through it. But Miss Jenny, I agree. That is probably, it will be the downfall of a lot of things. And in a lot of ways, I'm from that generation. I am a spawn of the generation of have it now.
Right.
And it's easy to fall into because everything's so accessible. But one thing I have learned about it is that the things that are worth having are the things that are worth waiting for. You know, when you wait for something, you work for something,
Right.
you earn something. It makes it so much more special.
Right.
I don't know. I don't want to get too philosophical on that. That just seems how it goes for me. Miss Jenny Easter says, patience is everything, and it works with every aspect of your life. And Mr. Ben says, patience is something that is a struggle today.
Yeah.
Yeah, it sure is. And it probably is more or less kind of combined with that whole, consumerism, instant gratification,
Right.
have it now type of mentality that in so many ways just kind of become the norm.
Right.
You know, there's same day shipping on Amazon or whatever else that it is out there.
About 3.
Yeah, right. And you know it's coming. And when everything is so, I hate to keep using the word, it's convenient, not just accessible. Everything's so convenient. Any inconvenience becomes like grand. If you're not used to the
Exactly.
inconveniences, any of them seems to be a big deal.
It does. You know, not saying anything, but Ms. Ulster and I, we wanted to buy a house. This was, back in the early 80s. So we needed $5,000 to pay down on a house. Well, they wanted $2,000, but we wanted to pay $5,000. We didn't have the money. So she was working 2 jobs. I was working 2 jobs, teaching. I was working at a grocery store. A catering place for food. So I got a gig teaching martial arts in Monroe. Sure did. And they paid me cash every week. It wasn't much. I think it was $50 a week or something for like 4, 5, 6 students. But came back and I put money into a jar. We saved $5,000. That's a lot of money back then. A lot of money now. But that's what we did. We just had patience. We wanted that first house. I didn't want to go in there. We both didn't want to go in there. We wanted to have enough money to pay on it
Right.
and have a little bit of money that we could buy furniture.
Oh,
And that's
wow.
what we did.
Yes,
She was
sir.
working 2 jobs. I was working 2 or 3 jobs teaching martial arts. And we did that for, I guess, maybe 3 years.
Wow.
You know,
I
just to
bet you
get to that
loved
payment.
that house.
We did. We
Yeah.
did. It was a brand new little house. It was cute as could be and stuff. We
Right.
stayed there, I don't know, 8, 9 years.
Yes, sir.
But, you know, if you really want something bad enough, you'll work towards it.
You sure will.
It's just like you do with your techniques. I do with my techniques. You know,
Right.
if you really, people say, you know, I really want that, but I don't know. If you don't know, then you don't want it.
You're right.
I mean, honestly,
You're
that's how I
so
feel about
right.
it. You know,
You were one of the few people in my life I've ever heard talk about that. And I'll go on a small tangent on that about how important that has become to me in my life. Is you hear people say they want things all the time. I'll even say it to myself sometimes in my own brain. Well, I'd like to have that, or I want this, or you hear people say, I want a marriage like you guys have got, or I want X, Y, Z, whatever it may be. And you always told me, when it came to running a martial arts school, going into the job that it is to be a martial arts instructor, if you want it, you'll do what it takes to get it.
exactly.
And that really is truth. And sometimes our brain thinks we want it, sometimes our heart really thinks we want it.
Right.
But when you really do want something, I really wanted to be in a lifelong relationship with Connor Rain.
Right.
And so I feel like I did what I needed to do in order to check all the boxes on the list in order
Yeah.
to do that. Some of those things were hard for me. Some of the things I had to change up on, But those changes, you'll make them if you really do want to.
I've had a lot of people, a lot of people come through the martial arts schools and they'll say, grown men, I want to stay here and get my black belt. I'm going to stay here for 10 years. People that usually tell you that, they're gone by green belt.
Every time.
Most of the time they do. There's one gentleman come in, Steve was there for about a year. He said, I'm loving it, I wouldn't miss this for nothing. Well, he had to take his daughter to school or something an hour early the next day. He said, I got to get up an hour early, so I'm going to stop martial arts. An hour early, you really didn't want it.
Right.
I'd have stayed there to midnight.
Right.
Teaching, I'd have got up at 4 o'clock in the morning, and I've done it to go do a lesson or whatever.
Yes,
you
sir.
know. So it's like you say, if you really want something, you'll work towards it.
Yes, sir.
And one little bump in the road, they're like, I can't do that, man. It's too hard.
That's right.
It's hard because you make it hard and you really don't want it.
Right.
I mean, I wouldn't trade anything the way we did on
Right.
martial arts, our schools and stuff. I wouldn't
That's
trade
right.
anything at all.
You're right. And that's one of those things that, to be clear, what I am not saying is not everyone has to have the same love and the same passion for martial arts that we do. But if you do, it shows. I've seen it in some people before. It shows.
Sure it does. And usually it's not an ego either. If
It's
they
a
really love
love,
it, it's
is
a
what
love.
it comes from. It's a
Exactly.
love. Yeah, it really, really is.
But they just tell me all the time, if you have love in your heart, there's no room for ego.
Oh, wow. That's a good
pretty
quote.
strong, yeah.
Hey, I like that
He
one.
used to tell
That's
me,
good.
Feel free to use that one. 5 years from now, throw that one at us.
On next week's podcast, the Mr. Pool Mike says, instant gratification. I think the mantra of the 2000s. Yeah, you're right. He says, Miss Jenny, I agree. Yeah, you're so right. That is the phrase I was looking for. The fast-paced of today's world is a large task to take on. And you're right. You're exactly right. It is a large task. And, we get on, I would love to hear your opinion on this, sir. We get on the young generation a lot, Gen Alpha, Gen Z, whatever it is these days, I don't know, the last generation, whoever it is. But in a lot of ways, there's so much on their plate that didn't even exist when I was a kid.
Right.
Truly. I mean, really in today's world, in order to do something, I don't know, start a business, there's so much more to it now. There's YouTube channels, there's online things that didn't exist 20, 30 years ago. There's so much more involvement because there's so many more people in the space doing things, if that makes sense.
It does.
And there's so much, I don't know, everything's more expensive, et cetera, but this world now where even, again, when I was a kid, you had a cable bill and it was kind of pricey, but now really you don't even have the cable anymore. You've got a Netflix bill and a Hulu bill and an Amazon bill, HBO Max bill, and
I have none of that.
me neither. I don't do it. I refuse. I
I used
refuse.
to watch NFL football all the time, but you got to have like 10 channels, watch 3 games.
I'm not doing it.
I'm not doing
I
that.
refuse.
No.
No, there's
I'm not
no
gonna do
way.
that. Here's my take on that.
I'd love to hear it.
People my age, not your age, but people my age, They want to put down these young kids. Oh, they can't add 2 and 2. They can't tell time. Maybe they can't.
Mm-hmm.
But they can sit there and look at that computer and figure out some kind of engineer problem.
Yes, sir.
They can be doctors or lawyers or whatever, things that we couldn't do.
Mm-hmm.
Do they have the upbringing we did? No.
Right.
And then it's easy for old people to laugh at them. They don't know how to use an old telephone. Well, they didn't have it. You don't know how to use a computer.
Right.
You know, so you can flip-flop that. So instead of what they can't do, look what they can do.
Sure.
You know, that's how I feel about it.
Right.
You know, so.
Yeah, no, there's some real bright stars out there.
Sure there are.
And the ones that get viral on the internet are obviously always, whatever generation it is, it's going to be the, you know, for lack of a better term, the dumbest ones. You know, that's the way it always has been.
Sure.
You know, that's what the cameras always point to is whatever. But I really do have high hopes for them. I really do. I hope that things can go forward in a lot of places because the change is happening every day. I mean,
The biggest thing for me is, and I'm not trying to get too much into this, but the biggest thing for me is I see so much hatred. I just see, I look at the TV and I watch all the stuff and I'm thinking, you live in a great country, you probably live in a nice house. Just because I don't agree with you or they agree with me, why do you want to burn something down?
Sure.
I mean, and I'm not getting into politics. I'm just saying, why in the world do you want to act that way? I never will understand that.
You know, and I in some ways can, just a little bit, because of the way I used to be. I never burnt any buildings down or whatever.
But you remember.
Put that out there. but you know, when you look at it, and let's, you know, a 16-year-old kid, 18-year-old kid, and they're just now making their first steps into the world.
Right.
And they see a stat, 48% of Americans can't even make a car payment. He's already stepping out into adult life and going, well, what hope is there for me? Even these great adults who say that in their time it was easier, or say in their time all you had to do was just work a job, go to work, and everything will work out. I don't see that anymore. And they're worried about AI taking their jobs, and there's so much fear there. And when I was young, when I was going through hard times, and there was fear for me, fear for if I was going to make a bill, or fear for whatever, the first thing I did was I created an enemy, somebody to blame. It couldn't be me. I wasn't going to blame me, but I wanted to create an enemy, and my enemy could have been anybody. It could have been the government. It could have been that math teacher that I didn't think did a good enough job. And I think that's the most basic, primal, you know, young man, young human instinct is to blame somebody else. And it wasn't until I was really, honestly, maybe like 24, 25, to where one day it really hit me. It's like, oh my gosh, this is actually all my fault. You know, everything that I've done in my life was a choice that I made. No one else made it for me. And so where I'm at is my own fault. It's my decisions. And so hopefully, I mean, it worked for me, and I have good hope for the next generation that they can come up the same way. Truly, I do. That was a fun little off-the-path talk there.
Real quick.
Sure.
Let me add something to that if I can.
Yes, please.
Here's the thing. The reason I don't understand that, because I grew up in the Andy Griffin era. You know, everybody went down the street, hey, Miss Jones, hey, Mr. Jones, how you doing? Hey there. Hey, tell your mom I made her a pound cake. You know, whatever. And that's the way I grew up. And as I got older, that's just what I learned. And hopefully I carried that through the martial arts.
Yes, sir.
But you're right. Had I grown up in a rough area, or had to defend for myself when I was 10, it would have been different.
Sure.
You know, and I know that.
Yes,
and
sir.
I realize that.
Yes, sir.
I just think when they start getting a little older, 20, 24, 25, 26, 30 years old, there's grown people just acting crazy.
I know it.
And you're thinking, you've had it made your whole life.
Exactly.
More than likely.
Yeah, more than likely.
And if you got a house, you got it.
Right, yeah.
Supposed to live.
I'm so envious of that Andy Griffith stuff. I really do. He was from North Carolina, wasn't he?
Maybe.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. That's there's a special charm when you see anything in that time period in particular. I'm not saying all the old stuff. I'm not really including 1920s, the Great Depression and stuff. But just that time period, there's a certain
60s, 70s.
Oh, there's a glow to it.
One word causes all that.
What is it?
Wholesome. Everything was wholesome.
Yes, sir.
Everything was wholesome. And that's just something I feel like it's a lot missing.
Yes, sir.
But the word is wholesome for me.
Wow. Good word. That's perfect. Mr. Pool Mike says, politicians say, if you want an applause, pause. It works every time. That's pretty good. Oh,
That's
my
good,
gosh.
Mr. Pool Mike.
Miss Connor Rain says, ooh, I like that. we were told that for dance, dance like it's the last time you'll be on stage. Talking about doing every technique like it's the last one. Also, every dance move should be thumbnail worthy. Oh, that's, yeah, make them all picture perfect. Yeah, that makes sense. That's so funny. Miss Easter says, per the story of saving money for things, that is what makes you appreciate what you have. Yeah, truly. I mean, it's, you know, we talk about, you know, church and the Bible on here sometimes, and I was raised that you earn by the sweat of your brow.
Absolutely.
And that's this. And I sweat a lot, so I should have a lot of money. I sweat hard. If I had a dime for every job, I'd be a millionaire.
You know, Ms. Alter used to work with this young man. I guess he was, I don't know who it was. Anyway, he worked in an office.
Mm-hmm.
This was years ago, and he saved his money. He had a full-time job working with them, but he worked at night. He saved his money, always wanted a Mercedes. So he saved his money for a few years. I don't know. Hadn't had to pay cash for it, but he saved for 4, 5, 6, 7 years.
Wow.
I don't know.
Wow.
But he paid cash for a nice used Mercedes. He drove it to work. Everybody in there started giving him a hard time.
Mm.
Who do you think you are? And I'm thinking, you don't know what we went through to get something.
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly.
You really don't.
You were so right. People sacrifice things to get there. Really, they do. And you get proud of something that you
Absolutely.
own, you know, and it doesn't matter what it is. And,
Right.
and it's so funny. I always look at it this way, as I came up with this maybe a couple of months ago. You walk into a room, you see somebody's got a nice big pie. It'd be your favorite flavor, I don't care. Yours is cherry, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, a big old cherry pie.
Just in case somebody wants to know.
His birthday's in October. So,
Of October.
so they, you walk in, you see a cherry pie, and then you're like, wow, you know, that looks good. Can I get a slice? And the guy's like, you want some of my cherry pie? You know? You walk in, you see what he's got there. But in a lot of ways, I look at this for whatever it can be. It can be a martial arts school. It can be anything that you worked hard for.
Right.
All they see is you got the pie. And they didn't see all the steps that it took for you to make it. You
Right.
know, you may have actually grown the cherries yourself and toiled the soil and spent time in the sun working and fighting off mosquitoes
Exactly.
and everything that it takes to make that pie, all the way up from the dough into the baking, pulling it out. Precious care and time and effort went into that. And then they see you got it, and they're like, let me get a slice of that, you know? And sure, maybe
Like
you can
it's
give
no
them a
big
slice.
deal.
Right, exactly. Like it doesn't mean anything. And that's really reminds me of what you're talking about, that Mercedes, is it's so much time and effort, energy goes into anything you have. And people don't see that. All
Right.
they see is the pie. They see the house you got. They see the Mercedes you got. They don't know you worked 19 jobs to do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, Ms. Alter and I could be wrong on the time. It's probably about a year and a half, almost 2 years. We didn't have any furniture. I mean, we had no furniture. We had a TV, it was about that big, with a hard bench for a couch. Well, it's an outside bench I found, some yard sale. But we slept on the floor for over a year and a half. I'd come in from working out, tired, sore, take a shower. She'd have the little quilts, make them think as she could. We would sit there at night and just say, you know, one day we're going to have a house, we'll have a car, we'll have money in the savings. You know, but we sat there and just thought about it. And we worked hard towards it. Not saying that other people hadn't done the same thing.
Sure.
But that's what we did. You know, we didn't just have anybody give us money or do anything. We worked for it. And through the good Lord's blessings that we were able to do it.
Yes, sir.
And the thing was, I enjoyed every step of it. So when I got my first student, I was proud. I got
Right.
my second one. I never had a student that I wasn't excited about.
Right.
You hadn't either.
No, sir. Not once.
Never.
You're so right. I think about that all the time, about that, you know, you tell that story to me, and it's just beautiful what can happen when you
Yep.
really work for something,
That's
you
right.
really put your all into it. And more importantly, it wasn't just you doing it, you had someone there with you.
Yeah,
you
went
know?
for her. I wouldn't have anything.
Oh, sir. It's amazing, actually. Amazing. If you guys don't know Miss Alter, that is a spectacular human being. So glad to hear someone saying it. Oh, talking about hey, Mr. Raver, good to see you. Glad you're here. He's probably talking about the young generation.
Mr. Raven, how you doing, sir?
I'll tell you what, actually, that he's a good young guy, sir. He's cool. He's really come a long way. He started with me, and he was about maybe 13 years
Yeah, I
old.
remember.
And wow, goodness
I remember.
gracious, he's turned out to be quite the guy.
Right.
I'm really proud of him.
He's got his black belt, right?
He's a first degree black
First-degree
belt.
black belt.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It's amazing. Miss Jenny Easter says we've been there as well. Well, guys, where we're going to be is back here next Tuesday at 7:30 p.m.
Not 7:33, but 7:30.
God willing, so we'll be there. But so that was so much fun. Even for just coming in last minute, just throwing it on as fast as we could. I still needed it, and it was still really, really good for me.
Me too. It's been a long 2 weeks.
Yes, sir.
I needed this a lot.
Absolutely.
I really did.
Well, guys, I hope you all have a great rest of your evening, and we'll be back here next Tuesday.
Guys, have a good night. Thanks.
See you later.